Hey there, art nerds. Today we're easily influenced by Sarah Cray and Let's Make Art. You might be familiar with Sarah Cray because she has been releasing these very popular art kits on Etsy as well as on the Let's Make Art site for a while. Today we're going to be taking a look, an in-depth look at one of her kits, taking a less in-depth look at several of her other kits, taking a look at her Floral Watercolor Workbook, and just taking a look at her social media presence in general. So if you enjoy this kind of nerdy art influencer slash influential artist content, you are in the right place. Today, let's be easily influenced by Let's Make Art and Sarah Cray. Hey guys, today we are talking about Sarah Cray and Let's Make Art, and I have this package to share with you guys. So let's get some things out of the way first. Sarah Cray has made several books of illustration. She does have a how-to book coming out. I have not pre-ordered it yet. I probably will. I haven't decided if I want to hold this video and include that book or do the book separately or what have you. I'm kind of feeling like I'm going to see how I feel about the art kits and then make that decision, because if the art kits and the instruction are great, then I will probably want to include the book. I also have the Let's Make Art advent calendar-ish thing that isn't what's in this package. It is actually sitting behind me on my floor. It's going to be a separate thing, and I am going to kind of see how I feel about today, as well as the goodies inside, to kind of determine how I want to handle doing that. Also, because you guys have asked, I'm not going to be doing the Arteza Advent calendars this year. I actually released a couple really short videos talking about them and why I'm not going to be doing them. So the TLDR is that they basically look the same as prior years, and I'm just really not interested in rehashing that. What is interesting about them is that they've started to do partnerships nominally with influential artists and art influencers. It would be really cool if they had taken my advice from last year and let those artists pick the supplies inside and create the projects for it. It seems like those artists are basically just creating the art for the advent calendar. And while I am always excited to see artists get paid, always excited to see artists get paid, I would have been more interested if the artist curated those advent calendars than what's actually going on. If Arteza changes and they start actually working with the artists who are making the art, then I'll probably go back to taking a look at the boxes, because then we have more to talk about. But as it is, we just really don't have anything to talk about in that regard. The order of operations for today, at least as far as I have decided, is I am going to open this for you guys. We're going to see what's inside. We're going to take a look at Let's Make Art's online presence, and then we're going to maybe do one of the kits. Probably do one of the kits. I believe I purchased like 3 kits when they were having a sale. So there's actually quite a bit in here, and the kits themselves may not be currently available. They may be available in a different orientation. They may have a different formulation. Things might be changing. So we're not necessarily 100% just looking at the kit itself. We're going to look at the choice of materials, how the instructions are written, whether it comes with a booklet, that sort of thing. We're going to look at the taste of the kit rather than the kit as an individual unit. So inside we have 3 art kits: Modern Landscape, Bokeh Mushrooms, and Daisy Delight. Ow, I lied. 4 art kits. We have 4 art kits. I'm sorry. Also, Hidden Garden. These are all by Sarah Cray. And what I think is kind of interesting, part of the reason I decided I wanted to review Sarah Cray's art kits is that I also offer art kits, although in a much more limited capacity. And I kind of wanted to see how another artist might be presenting their own art kits, what I can learn from that, how I can create a better scenario, you know, in terms of my art kits, like what I can learn to improve. I went looking for them. I did a show this weekend, Destrehan Fall Fest. I had them at the show this weekend. I can't find them right now, and that's super annoying because I would love to be able to show you one of my kits against one of Sarah's kits. Just to show you guys, just to give an idea. I am currently only offering the Paint Your State kits, but I am interested in kind of expanding into other kits, and I wanted to get some ideas for what I could do that might be different, that might be fun, that might be interesting, that you guys might want to support and want to paint along with me. So that was part of my rationale for trying out Sarah's art kits, was to kind of compare and contrast mine and hers and see what I could do differently and what I could improve upon, while also just getting to talk about Sarah Cray and get to talk about her art kits, which I thought you guys might enjoy. My goal is not to like spoil these kits, to ruin these kits, to make it so that these kits can't sell because I have shared all of the information and all of the secret sauce. That is not what I'm doing. This is not going to be a one-to-one. This is not going to be a tutorial. This is not, I'm not here to take Sarah's money, okay? I just wanted to take a look at her kits and wanted to see if I could make my kits a little bit more appealing or to sell some kits. You know what I mean? Like just doing a little bit of market research in this regard. So like I said, we have 4 kits here. They are all packed in a glassine bag. I also pack mine in glassine bags. What's nice about the UV bags is that they are going to protect the art. So once you finish painting it, you can put it back in the bag. Her kits come with the watercolor paper. They don't seem to come with chipboard. Mine do come with chipboard. Some of them are coming with liquid paints. I usually send little, I fill dots in half pans. I'm experimenting with different ways of like fulfilling the paint, because I have found with mine that often the paint will come out of the half pans and it's really annoying and it looks unprofessional. Hers do not come with brushes. Mine come with brushes, and they also come with masking fluid and a masking fluid pickup. In fact, there are 3 things that don't come in my kits. Otherwise, they're all inclusive. They don't come with your water. They don't come with a pencil, and they don't come with the tape. And I've even thought about including the tape, but it was more like, I don't want to send like a whole roll of washi tape. So I was like, well, how will I include the necessary amount of artist tape? And honestly, I could roll them around my little glass bottles. Like, that's an option. But I just kind of wanted to see what else is on the market. So we are going to take a look at the card. It was packed for us by Sean. The card says, thank you. We hope you enjoy your purchase. Show us what you're creating and find more inspiration online. All of the socials. We're going to take a look at those today. 15% off your next order between June 1st and 30th. That is on me. This has sat on my desk for a while. Not on my desk, but you know, like around my desk for a while. It just took me a while to get to these kits. So like the code would have been nice. I would have used it. But it just took me too long to get to it. So that is on me. So let us check out Let's Make Art. We're going to start with her website, since, you know, that like the neat thing about people's websites is that they can curate what's on there. So we have a slideshow up front for holiday. There is a lot. This is actually really nice. Like, this is the thing that I ordered that I'm also going to be talking about. Apparently she now also offers watercolor pads and postcards that, oh my gosh, there's just, I'm going to end up spending so much money. I mean, good for her, but I'm going to end up, this is kind of neat too. Although you don't necessarily want to be storing your brushes standing up. I see all of the money going away. This is neat. Like the little catalog thing. That's a cool idea. If you have an audience who regularly comes to your website looking for things, this can be a very cute way to present this information. I love it. I'm just over here like, oh, I don't think that's going to work for me. Like I would love to do that. And it's really cute that we've got like the projects compared next to the swatch books are such a thing. Like I have two of these, not hers, but two of these things that I still need to talk about for you guys. She has been just so busy. And then there's also like their guest artists. Like that is so super cool. I am always envious of other artists who are just like so together. That's a cool little catalog. You can tell she's really been working on it. And then there's also, I thought she was doing monthly watercolor boxes. So she does a subscription thing as well. And it is very like Christmas focused right now. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That is a level of together that some of us are just not at, but I can appreciate it. So basically everything that was in, I would not call Daniel Smith Watercolors a stocking stuffer. Like that is the present. And then, oh, these are those Mungyo paints with some pearl paints down here, the watercolor confections. We're not going to be talking about these because I have talked about Mungyo watercolors so many times that I'm just not going to spend, I'm sorry, I'm not going to spend the money on that. The paper pads, maybe. But if I can recognize where it's coming from, we can talk about it, but I'm not going to like purchase it and review it. But I love all the kits. They are very cute. You've got digital kits. So if you've already got all the materials, you can print it out and do it at home. We have physical kits, the card, like this is so cute. So cute and just so together. And then we also have some additional releases. So the Floral Workbook, the brush bundle, the Language of Flowers, Motherhood Journal. I think the Floral Workbook is the one that I am thinking of. Sorry, I got distracted by the pine palette. This is the one that I'm thinking of pre-ordering. Doesn't that look cute? That looks so cute. Look how pretty that is. And then paint with us for the next quarterly watercolor series. Projects and paints delivered each month in October, November, and December. Let's take a look at this. Quarterly bundles. So watercolor art boxes, bundle and save. So you would get like 4 pieces to do. How much are you? I'm just curious. So what? Okay. Okay. There's like some free, but generally it would be $34.99, and that is for 4 projects. She includes the paint and paper, does not include brushes. So I have a bit of a migraine right now, so I'm not even going to try to tell you whether I think it's worth it. We also haven't taken a look at her kits yet, so I don't think it's fair necessarily for me to say whether or not it's worth it. I don't know if I'm part of her mailing list, so I'll just go ahead and join. I never want any of you guys ever texting me the details for anything, so we're not going to do that. So up here in the Learn section is the watercolor box. In the Explore section, which is possibly like a blog, the featured watercolor, art boxes and kits, and try something new. In the shop, we have some options. You could log in, I guess, and maybe get access. And then let's make art matter. And that is a clickable link. So if I am, let's see what this is about, because it's actually not super clear to me. Follow along. Oh, okay. All right. So it might just be like a tutorial like on YouTube rather than like a kit. Okay. Wasn't super clear, but that is okay. Let's take a look at the featured watercolor. Okay, so it's more like a curation of the options on the site. So all the different options. She has so many, that's cool. She has so many options. It is beautiful. It is a little bit overwhelming. This is some of the other influential artists also work with them. So knowing me, I'll probably end up buying some additional things so that I can talk about those here on the channel as well. I am just so envious and in awe of all of the wonderful work that has gone into this. all these beautiful kits. Some of them are very affordable. Let's click the Strawberries Watercolor Kit, and let's just, okay, so it's on sale, but not super much. You can buy the complete kit or the project paper pack. So that's, I guess, if you already have the watercolors inside. Yeah, contains 2 sheets of watercolor paper, step-by-step sheet, and a reference card and an outline, so you would bring your own paint to this. So what I like about this is some of us are very picky about our paints. Some of us might not want to do liquid watercolors for this, etc. If you just want to paint along, this is perfect. It even includes the paper. She could even do a digital download variation that's even cheaper for people who just want are willing to pay for the instructions, and they are bringing everything else to the table. Something I find, I'm not going to say deceptive, that's kind of an unfair statement, but maybe a little confusing, is we do see brushes. We do see, obviously, we also see strawberries, and of course she's not shipping us strawberries, but we also see the artist tape and we see the butcher's tray. So it is a little bit confusing about, I mean, you do have to read to make sure that you know exactly what you're getting. And I think she does also offer some of these things like open stock, as I know I saw it. Like, I would assume the Pigeon letters one does come with the butcher's tray, for example, since it shows it, and it's also 99 bucks, which I have not actually reviewed it yet, so I actually can't tell you guys whether I think that is a good deal or not. And then there's also the digital quarterly watercolor box. That way you're not getting the supplies, you're getting the instruction. And then here is another, it looks, they call it custom. I have a suspicion that it's Mungyo, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to open it in another tab. I'll take a look at it a little bit later. We'll decide. Anyway, her art kits are beautiful. I think they are, so far, just from what I'm seeing, you know, a wonderful way to learn watercolor, to kind of take a class with somebody that isn't going to cost 75 bucks, 300 bucks, 1,000 bucks, 3,000 bucks, like we've been kind of seeing. And she does also offer some digital options, which is nice. So next, I want to check out some of her other socials. I know one of the big ones is her YouTube channel. We are going to get there. We're just not there yet. So I'm going to do like follow in order of the card, which you guys cannot see, but rest assured, we're going to start with Facebook. Here is her Facebook page. Provides what every creative person needs: supplies, support, and someone to share. And it trails off. 6 posts in the last 2 weeks. So relatively active. And this looks like it is from her watercolor journal, tagging Daniel Smith, Princeton, Silverbrush, herself, Paulina Bright. This is a post that someone made riffing on, like, you know, inspired by Let's Go Make Art. First of all, kudos to you for crediting the person who inspired you, because not only does that show up on your page and people can go check them out, but it shows up on Let's Go Make Art. And that's just, you know, super helpful for everybody involved. So it seems like Let's Go Make Art has a very supportive community, people doing the projects and sharing them online, and they seem like they really like what they're making. Here's somebody who followed a tutorial and shared it. When you teach, you hope that the things that you teach people matter, that they make a difference, that they stick with them, that you've given them a something. And this is, you get to see that the work that you did actually made a difference. So it seems like most of Let's Go Make Art's Facebook is like, you know, other people doing the projects along. That's really cool. So you guys can see just kind of what it can do for Sarah Cray, allowing her to really build up a business and to be able to offer more products and to be able to employ other artists. And I think a lot of teaching artists, myself included, would love that for ourselves. So this is her Instagram, but it isn't the one listed on her little card. I actually clicked one of the people who had like tagged her work. So I'm not sure if this is like her official. I have also seen just like so many artists to follow by doing this project. So if you guys see me click and follow, I haven't had a chance to like look at their stuff necessarily. Maybe I'm like enjoying their vibe, or I'm like looking at the art that they have in their profile pic and I'm like, oh, I want to check these people out later, because this is how I discover new people, is I do projects like this and I see the people that are recommended and I'm like, that's cool, I want to check out more of their art. So for this Instagram, it looks like we have reel, carousel, reel, single image, reel or video. So there's a lot of like carousel and video content kind of showing how to do these kits. All I can think of, I love it, I'm so jealous. All I can think of is like, theoretically, I could be following in these footsteps. I do a lot of tutorials. I take a lot of photos. Like, it wouldn't be that level of magnitude more difficult for me to offer more kits. But all I can hear is Joseph being like, no more SKUs, sell what you have, don't introduce more SKUs. So that's kind of the, when you're where I'm at in terms of an online presence and an in-person presence, there's so many things you wish you could offer. There's so many more things you'd like to do, but you just don't have the popularity or the sales to justify it. I don't know if this is her personal one, so I don't want to like super comment, because I do think if people want to share their lives to their personal Instagrams, they should be able to. This is the Let's Make Art official page. Not as many followers, but a lot of followers. We're an art shop that offers weekly tutorials, art boxes, trusted art supplies, and a community of support. Let's create together. So it's pretty similar. There's a little bit more kind of advertising looking stuff, which is fine. They're a business. Not as, am I not understanding? It doesn't seem like there's as many reels. There are still some carousels and there are still some reels, just not as many. I can only imagine how much work it takes to manage 2 Instagram accounts. I know I spend an annoying amount of time trying to manage my social media, and I still don't do as much as some people do. So that is a lot of time. So I'm particularly interested in seeing what she does with her TikTok, because I also have a TikTok and I'm not really sure like what I should be doing with it. Like, I've tried sharing tutorials, I've tried sharing time lapses, I've tried sharing like what I'm working on. I do like a mix of things. Her views are a little bit higher than mine, but they are not like orders of magnitude higher than mine. So it does make me feel like a little bit better about what I'm doing. My work is not necessarily as colorful, and she does make use, for the most part. It can be hard to remember to do this, and TikTok doesn't at all let you go back and edit it. But she has more of the like title cards, and I find that does help when I do it. I just forget to do it. She also has some consistent series, like Watercolor Wednesday, for example. She has some kids series going on. I think a lot of those of us with longer form backgrounds, like YouTube, TikTok is like, it's a whole nother beast, and you can do TikTok well, but I think a lot of us who are used to longer form content kind of struggle with doing TikTok and doing it well, especially because like, it does actually take up a lot of time. It does take a lot of energy. It is in a completely different format than recording for YouTube. So you often end up having to like spend a lot of time editing things, or you are spending a lot of time recording multiple things in multiple ways. So then, speaking of, let's go check out her YouTube. I think this is where, how am I not subscribed? She just gets recommended to me a lot. I think this is where a lot of people really know about Let's Make Art. And from what I have seen online, there's just like a lot of warm, fuzzy, positive feelings about Let's Make Art and Sarah Cray just in general. I have not, for any of the people we've talked about in this series, I've not like gone digging for drama. I'm not interested in drama. I'm not interested in hearing like people be mad at somebody else who makes more money for them when they're doing a legitimate thing. I'm just kind of mostly interested in like, you know, how the sausage is made, how they do what they do, what their subscribers look like, not literally, but like how many subscribers and what demographic they have, what their content looks like and who that attracts. Oh, the shorts are way at the top. That's actually kind of surprising. It also looks like the shorts are probably a little more curated than TikTok. There's not as many. We have the watercolor painting tutorials. The thumbnails are all themed. So like, oh, look, this series goes together. And then with the acrylic, oh, look, this series goes together. And I really admire that level of together. That's not me. I also like that she's brought on many guests. So this actually feels more, and I'm not saying this this feels more like a brand account. Very clean, very put together, actually not like a million shots of her face. And then also bringing in other artists. So I can really see why people resonate with this. It is very, very professional looking. Like it really gives you the feeling like Sarah has her act together. She knows what she's doing. So her community tab looks like it is mostly just promoting releases of things. That's fine. That's a good use for a community tab. Pictures of the cute doggo when things go on sale. We have taken a look at the Let's Make Art social media presence as well as some of Sarah Cray's social media presence. My goal isn't to like do a deep dive. It isn't to uncover like all this information that would just not be super readily available if you Googled the person's name or if you clicked around on their Instagram. We're just kind of trying to get a feel for how they market themselves, how they present themselves, how they share their art, and what their audience might look like. So the first time we looked at Let's Make Art, I didn't realize that Sarah Cray has like a separate social presence for herself, which makes sense when you're working as a company, but also as an individual. So I'm going to fix that. We're going to take a quick look at her website, and because that is part of being easily influenced. And one of the really cool things that about separating herself out from the Let's Make Art brand is that it allows her to have a much cleaner website. It makes everything much quicker and easier to navigate because she's kind of divvied it up between the art kits and her art that she's selling, which makes a lot of sense to me. And then down here, she's got, I'm pretty sure this is like pulling, yeah. Oh, Pinterest. You know, I'm going to click through mostly because I used to do Pinterest. Ah, no, never mind. It's Pinterest from Instagram. I used to do Pinterest a lot and I feel like I had pretty good results. But I kind of gave up on using it to share my art for a variety of reasons. But I have heard that it's still a great way if you have kind of a more femme-leaning audience. It can still be a good way to get your art in front of people who might appreciate it. Let me know if you've had good results with Pinterest. I've also seen a lot of art getting stolen, misattributed, that sort of thing. So I've also seen, I'm not worried that that's going to happen to me, but like I've also seen that kind of downside to Pinterest. So up here, she has her shop, education, watercolor your way, and about. Let's go to about, because I actually don't know much about her. I believe in sharing. I believe in connecting to others. I believe that we are stronger together than we are apart. She's a watercolor artist, wife, and mother of 3. She graduated magna cum laude from CSUS in 2015 with a degree in studio art, with an emphasis in painting and drawing. She's been creating custom watercolor and acrylic paintings since 2014 and has grown her small side business into her dream career. In 2018, Sarah co-founded Let's Make Art, a company that is committed to making and creating more accessible art for all. She spends her days creating art, teaching watercolor, and empowering others to do the same. And we have a little this or that kind of thing. So short and sweet, she admits to her education. I sincerely appreciate that. I like that kind of transparency. This is her new book that's coming out. I have pre-ordered it. I'm getting ahead of myself. We're going to talk about her other floral workbook in a little bit. This is future Becca, and sometimes future Becca forgets where she's at with past Becca. So this is kind of all a pre-order. And there are pre-order bonus gifts. I did actually pre-order it from Amazon. I wonder, oh shoot, maybe I should take advantage of this. That said, future Becca here, we did her advent calendar and she promised a bonus tutorial that I never received. Her site though is very clean and I really appreciate, like, it's very white on white, so it's not cluttered, it's not overly visually stimulating. The images here are bigger than the images in some of her kits and some of her books. And this seems to be much more pared down than what she offers on Let's Make Art. The Let's Make Art website honestly feels a little bit overwhelming. And then is this a different thing she's got going on? The Watercolor Summit? And then let's take a look at her shop. Oh, okay. I can't just go to like the shop as an overview. I have to go to the shop as, okay, fine. We will start, only available for a limited time. Join the email list to stay up to date on releases. Oh, and there is her Etsy shop. Okay, let's try originals. So, as an artist, I'm always interested in seeing what other artists charge for their prints and for their original work. And there's a lot of factors that go into pricing your art, how much time you spend on it, how many years of experience you have, how much demand there is for your originals and how much demand there is for your prints. If you're doing prints, who you're working with. If you're doing watercolors, you know, the quality of the materials, how long they're going to last. Because if you're painting on cellulose with student grade, it's not going to last as long as if you were painting with archival and light fast pigments on a nice cotton rag, right? So I'm always interested in seeing what people are charging, what sizes. I'm curious about what size. 9 by 12. And this is unframed, which makes sense. So I saw this on Threads and thought it was an interesting conversation. Do you send your art, do you send your originals in frames or do you send them unframed? And the consensus seems to be unframed unless the frame is requested, because the frame can very easily break in transit and ruin the painting. And mailing a frame adds a significant cost to the mailing cost. And then you have to pack it in a much different way. So most customers would prefer to have it framed themselves than to receive the frame. And I kind of lean into that as well. I do sell some of my pieces already matted. I honestly love finding mats that match my art and putting them together, but I don't permanently mat them. I kind of like temporarily mat them in case you don't like the mat, or in case you wanted to take it to a professional framer and they had a particular way that they wanted to do it. But I don't think these come with the mat either. It's interesting to me, and this isn't a statement, it's just a thought, that her prints are only, they're limited edition, which makes sense actually, but like she releases them as basically like drops, and you have to sign up to her mailing list to find out when there's a drop. Like that increases demand for a product that is honestly not as limited as an original would be. But her originals are just up on her site, and she even leaves the ones that are sold out. I do wish it would filter. Actually, it looks like they're all sold out. I was gonna say, I wish it would filter so that what's available is at the top, so you can see what's still available rather than it being mixed in. This is also smart because it creates further demand. It shows how popular her work is. With my originals, often historically they will sell in person before I get them up on the site, particularly when I lived in Nashville and was doing Cherry Blossom and MTAC. Those were great shows for me to sell originals. So they never even just made it on the site. But I am always interested in seeing how other artists are kind of presenting their work, how they're selling their work, what price points they're selling their work for, what does it look like. Not even necessarily, oh, that's sweet. That's sweet. So these are her cell phone backgrounds and they're for free. Like you can just download them, which is honestly very smart because people would do that anyway and not even ask you. So it's nice that she has them like available on her site if people want to use them. We took a look, or we're going to take a look at the Floral Workbook. She has ebooks here that are actually different. We have a White Magnolia ebook. We have a Peace on Earth ebook. We have Italian Coast. We have Sunlit Forest, and that is so pretty. And we have the Rocky Seascape ebook. Now, maybe I'm not understanding correctly. They're ebooks, which is fine. But like this one, for example, it does show it on a tablet, but like, I don't know, you have the paper here. Let's see. What I guess I'm saying is like, does she mail you the? Nope, it is a digital download. Works best with Adobe Acrobat and Apple Books. So all my Android pallies, we're all SOL. Oh well, you can't do everything for everyone. Anyway, that was a look at her site. She has a very pretty website. It's easy to navigate. Her art is beautiful. I was kind of hoping, I really do like her art, and I probably would have been tempted to pick up a print because I like her art, but I don't. Okay, so generally I try to save buying originals from people I'm like friends with, artists I'm friends with. So most of my originals come from my friends. Partially because originals are very expensive and I would prefer my friends to get that money. And also because I'm the kind of person who doesn't own any art she doesn't have a connection with. So I either just really resonated with it, or it made me feel a certain way, or I really love the subject matter, or I'm good friends with the person and I like the piece and I like the person. And every time I look at the piece, I'm going to think of that person. Like that's how I buy art. So, like I like her art, like a print or a postcard set amount, but fortunately, I try to reserve like the big originals for my friends. So anyway, she has a beautiful website. She has beautiful art. And I'm glad I took a chance, went back and double checked, because this is a very different experience from Let's Make Art, which Let's Make Art is a little overwhelming, a little cluttered. For the ADHD brain, it might be a wonderful thing. It might be a terrible thing. It is certainly very easy to overspend. Actually, why am I talking at y'all when we could just go circle on back there, y'all? Her Let's Make Art site is bright. It's colorful. There's moving things at the top. It's changed actually multiple times since, like every time I visit for a different reason, it is completely different. Like it doesn't have the catalog that I was showing you guys anymore. So like for ADHD people, the site is very appealing. It's very clickable. It's very easy to overspend on something like this. That's not her fault or problem. I'm just speaking as an ADHD person who has a problem with that. These kind of sites do tend to encourage the overspending problems. So avoiding, and see like she has like the curated gift guides now. This site has seriously updated. Like how do you have, she's got a team. That's how she has the time, Becca. She has a team. Anyway, this is cool too. There's a lot to look at. There's always something new to check out. Like that is kind of invites you to, sorry, got distracted by, I mean, that happens to me too. There's always something new to look at her site, which kind of encourages you to visit the site often to see, whoa, oh, I love this, right? Her favorite brush bundle, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You have one Raphael quill, which might be worth the money. You've got a bunch of golden Takalon. 4 of them are her brushes, so who knows? And then you also have, does she send the canvas? Okay, yes, but these are also very inexpensive. The influencer markup on this is so real. Oh boy, get that coin. I got distracted by this. It's $140, on sale from $140. Anyway, it might be best if I go ahead and end this segment now before I spend money. Just a quick look at her Etsy. It's been on break for a while, which makes sense because she's got a personal website and she's got Let's Make Art, and it's probably difficult to juggle all three of them at the same time. So let's take a look at the kits. I'm going to start with the bokeh mushrooms, and a bokeh technique is something that I play around with a lot in my art. I'm always looking for new techniques on how to do it, new tricks on how to achieve that effect. I think it is a beautiful effect, something I'd be interested in. And plus, mushrooms. I mean, come on, I draw and paint a lot of mushrooms, so I figured this was something that I would probably enjoy. Inside the sealed bag, and look, I'm going to nitpick as someone who sells art kits. First of all, the bag is a little large for the project. That's actually fine. It is. I love it when the bags fit just right, but like, let's be real, it's actually really hard to get like a tight fit bag with your chipboard, with your brushes, with your paints, like the way I do with my kits. So, and then it's hard to get them to stay in place. They want to shift all over the place. So, you know, I'm not actually complaining about that. Something I think is a little more annoying is the bags were sealed. This is so nitpicky. The bags didn't really they were sealed well, but they weren't like sealed with care, you know? And I don't know, that's just something I noticed because that's something I also make, and that's something I care a lot about when I'm doing it. I want my presentation to look as good as I can make it look, considering I'm a one-woman operation. So inside our glassine bag is our, hang on a second, our watercolor paper and 2 sheets of it. It's hard for me to tell you what I think this is before I paint on it. I'm getting cellulose vibes though, which is not my favorite. We also have what looks like it might be graphite transfer paper. I'm not sure. We have our reference image, our painted reference. We have our paints in little containers, Dandelion Paint Co., and just a little dropper of Tiger Orange that's labeled Let's Make Art. I know packaging things like this, like sub-packaging, is actually very challenging. Takes up a lot of time. So I appreciate the attention to detail. We have our instruction sheet. There is also a link to the video. I'm actually going to move the instruction sheet out of the way because, again, my goal is not to ruin this kit, right? It's just to talk about the kit, talk about the materials, talk about the quality, talk about the planning, that sort of thing. The card is on it's double-sided actually. So on the front side, it talks about painting. They also recommend the brushes that you should use, but brushes are not provided. All of the paints came from Dandelion Paint. So we have Space Blue, Tiger Orange, Payne's Gray, Rose Red. They recommend that we also watch the video tutorial. They want us to cut the paper in half and tape it down to our work surface. They did not include chipboard. I actually really don't like just taping stuff to my work surface unless I'm doing just swatches. So I am actually going to use an additional support with this. And it really, including some chipboard, would have given it some structural support and would have been rather cheap. That's what I do. So I'm probably going to grab some of my chipboard for this. The written instructions are, and I'm not going to show you guys, but they are just incredibly sparse on information. So I feel like we're probably going to be really relying on the video for this. She has some tips on how to get the most out of your painting section. A pro tip is work quickly to make color lifting step easier. A technical tip is value is what makes an object dimensional, and shifting value by hue/color adds richness and vibrancy. Practice this technique before attempting the mushrooms. Make it more realistic. Bokeh is a very fun technique, but do not let it overtake the painting. Make sure your foreground is the hero of the painting by keeping it sharp and defined. I would have also liked if she would have included photo reference for this. When I'm doing art kits, I actually, well, not with the Paint Your State, but with when I teach art in person and we're doing realistic painting, I do actually include photos for them to work from. And I have a hibiscus project that I've been strongly considering offering as an art kit. and I would include the photos with that as well. And to be fair, the photos are photos that I took that I have the rights to use. And that might be why she didn't include reference, is she may not have had the photo rights to this image. And I understand that. There's also some instructions on how to use graphite paper to transfer this image. I'm actually going to draw my own, but you can use her template if you want to. So I'm not going to use the graphite paper. I do kind of appreciate that she included the graphite paper for an image transfer technique. I think that's kind of cool. I like that there was some thought given to like people who want to do this who might not have draftsmanship skills, people who want to do this and may not have access to like a printer that they could like digitize it, which is how I often teach it. When do I remove the tape from my finished project? They actually recommend you wait 24 hours before you remove the tape from your watercolor painting. So that's like my advice with inking things. And I actually don't follow the 24-hour wait time, but that's not necessarily a bad suggestion. And then they also have a watercolor beginner series at letsmakeart.com. And then they also have a Facebook group. And they also have a full category of frequently asked questions at help.letsmakeart.com. And again, I'm not showing what I'm reading to you guys because I'm not looking to spoil the kit. So we have our reference, we have our image at half size, we have our graphite transfer, and if you're strategic, you can actually use the graphite transfer multiple times. We have 2 sheets of what I think looks like cellulose paper. She also did not mark which side is which, and it doesn't actually have much of a texture. Frankly, it kind of reminds me of like a mixed media paper. So that might be what it is. So I think what I'm going to do is I think I'm just going to like chill out this evening and work on this in time lapse, type up my thoughts on the instructions and the kit, and get back to you guys. Now, let's be fair. I'm not doing the graphite transfer. I'm going to sketch my own mushrooms. So I'm not really going to be able to talk too much about that part of the process. I'm not like, when I do graphite transfers, I don't use graphite transfer paper. I actually put my graphite on the back of my image and transfer it that way. It's just so much easier and neater for me. So that is an option. And you can even use a graphite stick. This is made by Cray. Lasts forever. That might be an easier option for you. So I'm not going to like run the video or anything like that, but I did want to show you what this actually looks like. So we have, it's hosted on YouTube. It is the bokeh mushrooms. Then we have supplies used to make this project where you can buy even more supplies. And part of my problem is like, this is an art kit. I wish she would have charged a little bit more money and included more of the items, right? So I think these are the paints, which we do have. These are the brushes. She's using a white enamel butcher's tray for the color mixing. She's using the Holbein soft tape. What are you? Who even knows? And then I guess this is her watercolor paper. And since I was just talking about it and wondering what this stuff is, let's see if we can find out. It says it is created by Sarah Cray and a team of paper experts. It is cold pressed 20 sheets, natural white, acid free, light fast, and age resistant, German made, and eco-friendly mill, vegan. So what this tells me is this is a cellulose paper, and the sizing they use, if they're using a sizing at all, is not gelatin based. So this is probably going to handle like an inexpensive mixed media paper, maybe a Bristol. Created by Sarah Cray and a team of experts, our brand new Let's Make Art watercolor paper is what dreams are made of. Let's not make promises we can't keep. This exclusive 9x12 watercolor paper pad includes 20 sheets of 140-pound cold pressed paper designed for artists of all experience levels. Enjoy beautiful blooms and soft, smooth transitions while painting. This paper is natural white, acid-free, and light fast and extremely age-resistant. It's vegan and German made in an eco-friendly mill. Paint this paper with our Dandelion Paint Company liquid watercolors and let's make art brushes. And then the reviews love this paper. It doesn't pill or bend when larger. Make sure you paint on the more textured side. Well, I would, but my more textured side is actually damaged. So maybe I will anyway, but that's another quality control thing. Like, why are you including paper that has scuff marks and is damaged? Started the watercolor journey in May 2020 with Sarah. Started with Canson because Sarah used it. See, this is what I mean by, like, if you're an influencer, and I'm including myself in this, okay? You gotta take what you say seriously, because people are going to try the things you recommend. That doesn't mean you are responsible when they don't like it, but it means that you shouldn't, if you don't actually like something, if you don't actually use something, it's disingenuous to present it like you love it and like it's great just because they're paying you. And I don't think that's what Sarah's doing, by the way. That's not what I'm saying. I've just seen a few others in this series. But I have my ifs about this paper. And then let's take a look at the brushes. These were not included. Is this a bundle or is it just one? It's just one. Oh, it's a synthetic. Stylish matte gray handle, embellished with their logo, gold accents, durable synthetic bristles, hold their shape and don't fall out. I'm not super, yeah. Anyway, we don't have her brushes, so we are not going to talk about her brushes, but we are going to do our best to paint these bokeh mushrooms. So we're going to start by talking about her video. I say this with love. It's very YouTube 2016, 2017. Stock music, the way the introduction is done, the shot choices. This isn't a bad thing, it's just an observation. I do like that she introduces the 3 parts we're going to do and the order we're going to do them in before we even start painting. The video is about an hour long. Bright, friendly personality, jokes with her husband, very upbeat. She does explain how to use the graphite paper. There's a lot of atmospheric noise like my videos have, and it kind of has an ASMR effect on me. It just kind of makes me sleepy. I will say that I don't really need her husband's input. She has herself in the shot, but you can't see her hands, just her face, and you can't see him at all. So it has kind of like that weird podcast effect. And I don't listen to a lot of podcasts because of this sort of thing. It just kind of annoys me a little bit. And I wanted to ask you guys, on the rare occasions that I have Joseph chime in, does this bother you guys or not? Her husband seems really nice. I think it's just a me problem and not a him problem. It feels kind of like a hangout, so I can see the appeal for some people. It's very homey. She uses chapters, which I appreciate. She gives an overview of what she's going to do first, so you know what to expect. She's very encouraging and calm. It's very class-like. The technique is neat. I've done lifting with a paper towel and with a brush, but I haven't combined them this way for bokeh. She doesn't really explain how to use the dye-based paints, so if you're not familiar, you may struggle a bit. She might have tutorials on that though. While her husband being encouraging is sweet, and he is constantly encouraging her, constantly saying nice things, constantly giving her positive feedback, it's kind of distracting for me. I'm used to, I do actually ask Joseph for feedback, but it's usually like maybe once or twice a painting session in an evening, or if I need specific feedback. The guy in the recording with her, this is pretty constant. The paper she's included can't really take this much water or this much lifting. It starts to degrade. I'm also kind of doing my own thing in a lot of areas, taking inspiration from Sarah, but also using my own taste. She uses a heat gun to speed things up, and I'm going to use a hair dryer since that's what I have. On further looking at it, it's one of those heat guns that's probably really a hair dryer. It's just been rebranded. I also have like a heat gun that I bought for resin stuff. And so I point this out because I'm mentioning it to you guys and you guys can't see it. I feel like I'm kind of making a mess with this. The dye-based liquid watercolor is hard to get saturated enough, and the paper doesn't really hold water well. I may also just be trying too hard, and I may be in my head too much. For kits, it's hard to know what supplies are common supplies everyone might have and what to include. The idea of the bouquet is nice, but the paper is a bit like painting on cardboard. While I'm not super happy with the mess I've made, it is relaxing so far to paint along, and not everything has to be a beautiful work of art. I think this would work better on a better paper with paints that also lift better, so like granulating paints perhaps. She doesn't mention changing the water or when she changes the water. I didn't catch her changing the water. At this point in the painting, I decided I needed to change my water because we're going to be switching focus over to the fly agaric. Personally, I really struggle with liquid and dye-based watercolors. These are always a challenge for me to use. Including masking fluid would have made painting these mushrooms a lot easier. It was hard to paint around all the little white specks while the watercolor is still wet on the paper because we're working on a cellulose and this paper absorbs kind of strange. She doesn't time lapse anything, so it's all real time, and she doesn't edit out background noise, so it makes for a really relaxing video, but it also takes a while. I wanted to draw my own thing in case I liked it and wanted to use it for something, but I don't really like it. But honestly, I think it's a combo of the paper and the inks with my brushes, not really an issue with the instruction. Sarah's using a synthetic and I'm using mixed fibers. I've always been someone who wanted to tell her own stories or to draw her own things. So like art kits aren't appealing to me in a make a pretty piece of art sort of way. It's a challenge for me to kind of get into the other artist's headspace, even though I think it's a valid way of thinking. I have to be careful when making this review because my needs as an artist are so different from someone who likes kits. I would want more novelty and to really focus on techniques rather than just making something pretty. And I do think that her bouquet background in the beginning does a good job of introducing a new technique in an approachable way. She talks about her art philosophy a bit, and we come from a similar place. I think her quiet, warm presentation style is very approachable. I owe myself a little redemption as I paint a lot of fly agaric, so I'm going to include a couple of my art prints that are fly agaric that I think turned out really cute, just to show you guys I can actually do this. I don't know about y'all, but like dye-based watercolors are always a struggle for me to control, and I have a lot of issues with water control with dye-based watercolors. The paper also has kind of a weird dry time. It really is kind of like painting on a mixed media paper. Once it gets saturated, it takes forever to dry. That said, if you're looking for cozy, friendly, approachable instruction with a lot of encouragement that's going to move at a slower pace and it's going to feel like you're hanging out with your instructor, I think Let's Make Art's art kits do a great job with their video tutorials. That said, her written tutorial is just not in-depth enough for me to feel like you could follow along to it without utilizing the video as well. And I know a lot of you who watch my stuff have commented before that you actually can't do video tutorials and you really need those written instructions. Unfortunately, these written instructions are not going to be in-depth enough to make it easy to follow along. I'm an intermediate watercolor artist who paints a lot of mushrooms, so I would say I'm an experienced mushroom painter, and I was kind of struggling with what she was trying to convey, especially because I really wanted to focus on the bouquet technique that I bought this kit for, and I didn't really feel like it was covered enough in her written instructions, but it's actually covered a lot, very extensively in her video instructions. So if you can work with a combo of the two or like video instructions, I think her kits might be good for you. So generally, I don't really talk a lot about art kits on the channel. And I guess I should specify because sometimes I get a wild hair and I do. When I say I don't talk about art kits on the channel, I mean like this: step 1, step 2, step 3. We've done a few and they are fun to do together on live streams, but in general, this isn't really the focus of what I want to do. I want to do the stuff I want to do, and I want to draw the things that I have in my imagination, and I would rather make tutorials than spend my time doing kits. So I am not necessarily like the most ideal audience for this kind of kit. That said, I did have fun doing it. I did enjoy myself. Sarah is a wonderful host. It's kind of interesting to compare our approaches to creating videos, particularly video for tutorial purposes. Hers is, I don't want to say it's unedited, but it is very minimally edited. You can hear all the background noise. Yeah, speak of the devil. You can, she and her husband, or she and Keenan, I'm sorry, I'm not sure if he's her husband, they spend a lot of time making conversation, bantering back and forth. There's a Naruto joke in there that she doesn't get. Like, it's very relaxed and very informal and very friendly. And I do think that makes it very warm and approachable. And I kind of take the other track just based of years of feedback of people being like, your videos take too long, your videos are too slow. Nobody wants to watch paint dry. Nobody wants to watch you paint in real time. So it's interesting to see like the divergent course. I found her video in general to be very relaxing. When I say I almost fell asleep, I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, it was just very relaxing. It had almost like an ASMR effect for me. But there were times where it really was just kind of too pokey for me. She also has a face cam that shows like some of her upper body, but it actually doesn't show what she's doing with her hands, how she's holding her brush, things like that. And I know that that can be important to see, and that would be a reason, in my opinion, to actually have the face cam so you can see the body posture, so you can get a different view on how the table is set up, how the paper is being held, all that good stuff that sometimes we can't tell from a downward shot like this. I do think it was worth the money I paid, but I think I thought I was getting like brushes with this. I thought I was getting like a structure to tape it down to with this. So to be fair to Sarah, our price points are very, very different price points. I charged $25 for mine, and I believe this was $15 maybe. I did get it on sale. You guys could see though what she sells them for on the site. So mine are almost twice as much. The difference with mine is I include cotton rag watercolor paper. I have done a blue line transfer of the state for you, so all you have to do is trace it. I include two brushes, I include two brushes, one larger Zen watercolor brush, and then a small synthetic brush. I include a small glass bottle of masking fluid. I include a masking fluid pickup. I include a small tin with 4 to 6 half pans of professional grade watercolor paint in there. I include printed out instructions, and mine are multi-sheets of paper, but mine don't include photos. There's also a link to a Notion doc online that is written out, but also includes photos at every step. And I include not one whole video. I actually break it up into little shorter videos. So if you know something, you can skip that video, and they're all very edited so that you're not waiting and skipping around for the next step. So just different approaches. And while I really did enjoy Sarah's approach, I don't really think that's like the best approach for me. And as I release future art kits, I think I will probably continue to do the approach that I do. For example, minimally edited videos for me are not really an option because my computer is super duper loud and annoying, and I know it. I know you guys know it. I have tried different mics. I have tried putting up acoustic panels. I tried a few things, and it's just noisy. It lives underneath my art desk. It's going to make a lot of noise. So a minimally edited video from me would probably be like listening to nails on a chalkboard. So I'm always going to time-lapse some things, voice over some things, add music on top of things. She never changed her angle too much. You got the face cam and you got the downward shot. There wasn't a lot of variation between the two. And I do think pulling in sometimes so you can really see what's going on can be particularly helpful. So just different approaches to art kits and the work that goes behind the scenes in creating an art kit. So we're not going to do the other 3 kits today, but I did want to kind of take a look at them so we can see what's in them and just kind of make some mental notes about what works for a kit and what might not. I'm going to start with Daisy Delight. And again, the point isn't to like make it so that nobody wants, I'm not like trying to reveal all the secrets. We're just going to take kind of a quick look. So I believe inside is still 2 sheets of watercolor paper. I have the feeling we are, man, I cannot get it. And then the adhesive wants to stick to it. Okay, come on, there we go. All right, 2 sheets of her watercolor paper. We have our reference image. It would be y'all know I would prefer photo reference too. Like, it's cool to see the finished one. And if this was done as a postcard, that would also be very cool. We have the paints. These are different colors this time. This set has leaf green, deep yellow, berry blue, and magenta. We have our written instructions, and they are, I would say, very, very, very sparse. But she also tells you how to go visit the video part of her site. I don't know why I can't talk. And that's it. Like, there's nothing else in Daisy Delight. So we're gonna pop this one. Oh, they have the paints down here at the bottom. And actually, she doesn't direct you to a unique URL for this one. She directs you to where her other tutorials are. I don't know how much I love that. It was nice, kind of just, honestly, a QR code. Well, okay, I'm on my phone, or I'm recording on my phone, so, you know, maybe not a ooh, this is not going to go back in. See, this is why when I sell art prints, I will tape them usually, or when I sell original art, I will tape it rather than actually removing the sticky, in case you want to take it out to look at it and then put it back in. Because this will just stick all over, and that's kind of annoying to some folks. So that is the Daisy Delight. And I think what drew me to this was the loose watercolor florals. Who is surprised? This does not include masking fluid though, and I would have thought this would have been a very masking fluid heavy project. Next, we're going to take a look at Hidden Garden. I'm kind of starting to feel like all of the kits come with your reference image, 2 sheets of paper, and the paints you need, and nothing else. Of course, you can buy her brushes and more paper online. So does it list the, no, okay, up here we have lemon yellow, Tahoe blue, red, Payne's gray, and honey brown. And this is kind of like the first one, where small, somewhat sparse photos in full color, and then instructions as well as some pro tips. I actually like the inclusions of the pro tips. And then here is our reference image. I wonder which of these designs came first. The one where it just kind of explains how to, oh, you know what? I mean, her stuff is branded all over the place, but I'm a little surprised there isn't like a business card or something in here. Now, I'm also going to comment that, and I'm sorry if all the crinkling makes it hard to hear me, as a gift, these are not really inclusive enough to be given as a gift. And when I design art kits, a lot of my customers are parents who are buying it for an artsy kid. So I am really glad that it has pretty much everything they need. And in terms of masking fluid, I actually use the blue low-tack painter's tape all the time. So that's what I would recommend that people use when they're painting along with my kits. But I even include the backer board so that they don't have to tape it to a table. They may not have the luxury of having a table that they can just monopolize for a couple of hours. And then finally, we have Modern Landscape. I am kind of interested in her art book, so I definitely think I'll be pre-ordering it. She has like kind of a warm and friendly, approachable style, so I think that would probably come through in her book. So we get small bottles this time. And I will also say that with the mushrooms, I felt like I might actually run through all of my paint. And I will also point out that while I might be, this is not even spoiling the sauce, to be real. Like, this is like helpful, but it isn't as helpful as her videos. Her videos are really going to be what's going to teach you how to do these. Whereas with my Paint Your State kits, I really try to make it so that even someone who doesn't have internet access would be able to follow along with what I'm doing. Maybe it's not like 100% perfect, but I'm definitely more wordy with the Paint Your State kits. And it's just a different approach. And I mean, to be real, like more and more people do have internet access or would be able to borrow somebody's phone to paint along. So, you know, maybe that being so wordy isn't such a great selling point. I don't know, but I do kind of feel like for kits that you sell to be given as a gift, and I'm not saying that's what she's doing here, I do think it is really important that all of the information you need to know is packed in the kit because that's part of what you're buying. This one has the colors listed down here. black, Tahoe blue, burnt orange, deep yellow, and again recommends the brush sizes. And what I kind of liked about this, I was kind of hoping she would actually talk more about how she thinks about things and her thought process. And she does talk a lot about how she thinks about adding color, but there wasn't a lot of talk about like how to take your reference and then transcribe it and abstract it, cartoon it into the image. And that's what I was really kind of hoping to see. Like, if you when you watch the videos, you'll see that she actually has the practice one that she's done to make the kit, and then she's painting another, and you're basically working along with her from this already abstracted reference. And it would be really cool to see her show the photo that she was working from and kind of explain her thought process along the way. And maybe if I decide to do additional art kits other than Paint Your State, that could be an area that I could bring something unique to the table. And I think that's something I've mentioned in a lot of my book reviews as well, is that a lot of these artists don't really explain their thought process for the decisions that they're making in terms of how they're drawing things, where they're placing things, how they're utilizing atmospheric perspective, etc. And that could be an area that, as a comic artist, so I have to do a lot of drawing and a lot of thinking about what I'm drawing, I have spent more time in that headspace, and I may have more experience to bring to the table. So regarding Sarah Cray's art kits, I don't want to give a yay or a nay on these kits. I do think there is a market for them, particularly at the price point they're at. I don't think I'm part of that market. I think some of my audience is probably part of that market. I mean, on the one hand, you're going to need some materials already. You're going to need brushes. You're going to need a mixing surface. You're going to need tape. You're going to need a place where you can tape it down. On the other hand, she provides some things. She provides a templated illustration. Actually, now that I think about it, this might have been the only one that came with a templated illustration. Unless it got lost in the sauce, I think the mushrooms are the only one. Well, you know what? I will add a little footnote here from when I watch my footage, whether or not all of them come with a template or not. This kit does come with a template, so even if you can't draw, you can be able to recreate what she has done. I did my own thing because I am that person. You know, you have to be 100% annoying all the time. I feel like you're an artist who has some materials. Maybe you have some anxiety about making art. Maybe you need something to ease you into using those materials. Maybe you're looking for some ideas. Maybe you're looking to get inside the head of another artist and kind of see how they think about things so that can inspire your own work. There's nothing wrong with that. That is a very valid audience. I think probably a lot of my viewers are along for some of that as well. So I get you. It's not necessarily for me because it doesn't really include all the materials that you're going to need within reason. I think at a higher price point, you could throw in those synthetic brushes. Those things are not really that expensive. I know I have sourced synthetic brushes. And that way this kit would also work well as a gift, because as of right now, I feel like the customer, and you guys can let me know in the comments if I'm wrong, the customer who's buying these kits probably watches Sarah's YouTube channel or is familiar with it. Maybe they follow her on Instagram. They like her art. They like what they see, and they're looking probably for something for themselves. If you're giving this as a gift to somebody who is interested in watercolor but is not experienced and doesn't own the materials, they're not going to be able to use this kit straight out. So that is something to keep in mind. So I'm going to go ahead and pre-order her book. And I also have her 12 Days of Christmas box of goodies sitting behind me. I want to point out that all of this was made possible thanks to the generosity of my patrons on Patreon. Sarah Cray and I do not know each other. We do not, to my knowledge, we have never communicated. I do not believe we have ever met. So this is just a review, and reviews are for consumers. If you found this helpful and useful, that is fantastic. If you disagree with me, if you feel differently, please do let me know down in the comments. Let's just be respectful to one another, because one of the cool things I think about being an artist is that you can like different materials, you can like different techniques, and both artists can be valid, right? Like, I hate dye-based watercolors, but I tried them. I painted along with Sarah. She was able to do, I think, better than I could. And that's valid. Like, these are not bad materials. These are by far not the worst dye-based liquid watercolors I've ever used. They weren't particularly difficult to handle. They did not lose all saturation. They didn't totally fall apart. They're fine. So you can feel differently than I feel. We can have different opinions. We're all coming to art from a different place. I committed and I ordered some of the art books that are for sale through Let's Make Art. I believe they are self-publishing these, whereas the book that they have coming up that was available for pre-order, but I feel like that pre-order period has just ended, that is actually through a publisher. So we're going to take a look at these today. I have to say, I've really been enjoying reading all these different art books for the Easily Influenced series. I do wish my local library or my local Barnes & Noble carried some of these books, because sometimes you can't see what a book is like ahead of time. And I feel like for a lot of people, that would make or break some of these book sales. But hopefully, not only are these reviews enriching for me, because I have been enjoying them, but hopefully they're helping you guys get a feel for these different art books and whether or not they're a good fit for you and a good use of your money. So we have the Sarah Cray Floral Workbook, Step-by-Step Projects Volume 1. And for a self-published book, this is beautiful. It's got spiral binding. It has this really nice, like, double cover going on. I don't really know what that's about, but it's still really nice. So, oh, this is so cool. This is really cool. So we have an introduction, right? But we have our projects, and then we have this is probably a printout, but it's like a gray line printout. So the grays will kind of disappear when you paint it. This has been printed onto watercolor paper, and it has a perforated edge, and you guys can't, there we go, you can kind of see it now, right? This is super cool. I really like how she's included this. This is great. This is what I have been talking about wanting to see. This is very similar to what I would like to be able to offer for some of my watercolor stuff. So this is really cool. She doesn't include paints with this, but she does recommend the colors. Now, obviously, you don't have to do these exact colors. You could do a close enough color match, but this already, I think, would be a wonderful present for somebody who wants to watercolor, maybe for relaxation, maybe they want to learn some new skills or practice some new skills, and they're not confident in their drawing, or maybe the drawing makes them very anxious and they don't want to spend that time being anxious, right? Because watercolor might be a pleasure activity for them. So I think this is just super cool. The instructions are not as in-depth, maybe, as some folks might like, as I might like. They're, I would say, a little sparse. Now, she does give some different ways that you can do the book. So these are just suggestions. You can also just paint these however you want to paint them. She also has some definitions at the front. I am looking to see if perhaps she mentions having like these up on YouTube or something. I'm not seeing that. That would be, and I know that's like a lot of work. Believe me, I know that's like a lot of work. But that's the only thing I would suggest that she isn't doing, because as we saw with her art kits, her written instructions are kind of sparse and her video tutorials are actually much more in-depth. So for my friends who are interested in watercolor, who like to paint and are interested in painting along, but they may not have the drawing confidence, I think you guys will really like this. And I am definitely going to try painting one of these, although maybe not today. We will see. So next is the summer sunflower watercolor painting tutorial. I'm not super sure if I ordered this or if this was included as a pack-in, since I spent a pretty substantial amount of money on this. And as we talked about when painting the mushrooms, her tutorials really shine when it comes to the video aspect. As you guys can probably already see, there's not a whole lot of written and photo instruction, and that's kind of what's going on in the book as well. So it would be wonderful if she also included some videos. Maybe there's an add-on option where you can purchase the videos. I don't know. I personally don't really feel the need for that. I do kind of wish if she was working from photo reference for these, she'd included the photo, because this final image and this hero image, they're both kind of small if you're painting along. At least for me, I'd rather work from like a realistic photo reference and then kind of abstract it my own way if I was painting along. But that might just be like a me thing and a personal preference thing. And then we have the Botanical Watercolor Crash Course with Peggy Dean. And I'm going to separate this out into its own video to give it the time, the care, and the attention that it deserves. And we're also going to include this, like I said, as a separate video as part of the Easily Influenced series. So if that sounds like something that you would be interested in, if you're familiar with Peggy Dean's art, you're curious what this box might contain, or you're interested in botanical watercolor, make sure you subscribe and you click the bell notification so that YouTube will let you know when this video is out. Now I realized something. This doesn't come with the paint. In fact, it looks like it comes with a lot more paper than what we usually see from her kits, which would be 2 sheets. So let's go ahead and take a look. And all right, now I get it. It just wasn't labeled, so I got confused. We have our sunflower reference, we have vegetables, we have a beautiful sunset over a wheat field, and we have an adorable otter. And for this, we have our corresponding instruction sheet. Sorry, I was kind of looking at this. Is there an outline? Okay, so it comes with the, and we talked about this with the mushrooms, we have printed outlines, and then we have graphite transfers, and then we have our watercolor paper. So if you want to paint along and you don't like using dye-based watercolors, this might be a good way to do it. And I found that Sarah Cray's kits are rather affordably priced, especially because I've been kind of browsing Etsy to see what other artists are offering and charging for their kits. As somebody who also offers watercolor kits, I wanted to kind of do a little bit of market research and see what's out there. And I will say her kits are pretty fairly priced considering what you're getting. But if there is a watercolor kit that is handmade by an artist that's on the market that you guys would like me to check out, let me know all about it down in the comments. This book is gorgeous. It's way nicer than I expected. It's a self-published book published and designed by Sarah Cray, and I want to know who she's working with because, no joke, this is what I want for my How to Draw and Paint People book. It's basically like her kits, a very brief intro on watercolor, although to be fair, you've probably read a few watercolor books by now, and then a bunch of brief projects. In between each project is a printed line art that's printed on perforated cold pressed watercolor paper, probably cellulose and probably her brand, while the instructions for each project are fairly brief and the photos are tiny, and there's no links to follow the tutorials in video format, which she usually does with her kits. I still love this book. Every flower is handled in a different way, covering different styles of painting in watercolor flowers. I love the intention behind this workbook, and I feel like it'd make a wonderful present for someone who admires watercolor and is interested in watercolor, but maybe not interested in drawing. I'd like to paint along with a couple of the projects to demonstrate and give y'all a full review. I'm going to start with the Line and Wash Sweet Pea. I really wish she would have included her photo reference or photos of her reference because the photos of her work are very small and difficult to see. I inked mine using a Sakura Pigma FB so I could get that beautiful line variation, and I ended up having to look up how sweet pea flowers actually look because otherwise I would have either just been tracing her line art or it would have been a copy of a copy, which always turns out poorly for me. In her example, you can see she adds lines and frills to her inked line art that aren't there in the gray line. And for Line and Wash, I feel like you really do need those ink details. So for this, I guess you can call it a collaboration because I ended up taking liberties and elaborating quite a bit. While that's cool in theory, I feel kind of weird about it because I am very used to doing all my own original art and only displaying my own original art or putting a heavy Becca Hilburn spin on it like with fan art, and this isn't that. So I attached it to some chipboard. I think it's the same chipboard I used when I painted the kit. The instructions for this project are extremely limited, and because the project is meant to fit across a single page, the photos are very small and challenging to see well enough to follow along. This one is a really simple one, and if I wasn't already familiar with basic watercolor techniques, I probably couldn't follow along with it. I painted according to her instructions up to step 4, and mine really doesn't look much like hers, so I decided to go a little off script. I added some additional water to try to get more color variation, and to be fair, these are my watercolors as none were provided, and it's a palette I'm very familiar with. This is the Da Vinci mixing palette if you guys are curious. I love this palette. She doesn't mention anything about dry times, but I'm going to let it dry a little bit before adding in the darker color to get that wet into wet diffusion. The included cellulose paper doesn't really handle wet into wet very well. It's either soaking wet or dry, which doesn't really leave a lot of room for wet into wet. So for the colors, I approximated alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, yellow ochre, but the ultramarine blue and the yellow ochre ended up mixing a gray, so I swapped it out for phthalo blue and yellow ochre. I mean, I guess this is Line and Wash. I probably should have broken it down into more steps than 6, with a few more layers and mention of dry time. To be fair, this project took me the time it took to ink, which was a couple of hours, then a couple of hours to let the ink cure, and then about 30 minutes to paint, plus extensive dry time. So it's rather fast and fairly accessible time-wise. She doesn't mention a dry time in step 6, but I allowed it to dry overnight. do I like about this book so far? Well, I would not have done a line and wash like this on my own. It's not that I dislike the style. I love the style. I just wouldn't have thought to. So it got me out of my comfort zone in a very easy and approachable way, which is great. The fact that she includes a pre-printed line art for every project means that every project is just that much more approachable, which is also wonderful. I do wish these projects came with video instructions, larger photos, more written instructions, or more steps, because I feel like all those gaps are where less experienced watercolor artists may fail. For the next project, I had a little bit of decision paralysis. I didn't want to just do one project, two project, three project in order of the book. I wanted to show a good gamut. So I asked Joseph to pick a project and he picked the iris. This one is one that could definitely use more writing. Am I supposed to let the water dry between step 1 and 2? It sort of looks like she did, but not fully. Am I supposed to apply less water in the second step? She doesn't say, and it's hard to see from the photos. Mine is looking like a mess right now. My water control on this paper with these brushes is not great. She doesn't mention what colors to mix for the leaves of the iris, stem, and bud, but I can kind of guess. Her art is beautiful, but it needs more writing and photos, or it needs some video companions. Although she doesn't say anything about dry times, which is part of the reason this turned out to be a mess, I have to let this thing dry some, as there is so much water on the page and cellulose papers do not take water well. This is why it's a really good thing that I have been taping these projects down to some chipboard. I believe in general with her kit, she recommends that you tape them down to like your drawing surface. So like your table, if you have a table. Not everyone has a table they can dedicate to something like this, and the book doesn't really seem to mention it at all. So I would recommend getting some political signboard, some coroplast, some foam core, some chipboard, something like that that you can tape it down to and move it, because the dry times on these things are really long, and if you're working in a shared family space, you're gonna need to move it. So once you saturate the paper, it takes a really long time to dry, and I wish she'd mention dry times or like dry amounts, or give like more information on when to go in with more paint or water. I like a lot of her ideas, and it's very tempting to redraw it my own way and use her concepts instead of using the line art. But I think it's fair to review the paper and the line art, since they're an important part of the book and one of the big selling points in my honest opinion. As I mentioned earlier, her instructions are very loose, so I'm having to wing it a lot. For an intermediate painter, that might be fine, but if this is intended for newer painters, you need to be more specific, or they'll get discouraged when theirs doesn't match yours. If she could get an estimated time for each project so people could kind of get a feel for how long it should take, that would be helpful too. The dry time on this iris project is crazy. This paper lifts too easily. My phone says I've been working on this for 33 minutes because I was recording it, but I started noodling with it at the start of a premiere, so around 8 p.m., and it was 10:30 at the time I was taking these notes. So I've literally spent 2 hours watching paint dry on this one. I don't know, y'all. I feel like mine is a mess. More direction or instruction or the reference photo would have been so helpful for this. This would have been a good one for a QR code to a tutorial or something. So once I kind of did what I could with it, I just had to let it dry overnight and step away. I think there's some good ideas here, but there's a lot that I had to bring to this that was not mentioned in the instructions. And I sincerely feel like if you're a less experienced watercolor artist, that's a huge downfall. You're going to start doubting yourself. You're going to start second guessing yourself. You're going to be afraid of ruining it. And that might be when you decide to just put down the brush and give up. And I feel like books like this are meant to help overcome that. And I do think if she'd included more written instructions, particularly like the dry times, that would have been very helpful for encouraging artists of various skill levels to keep on painting and power through. the back of this workbook, there are some more complicated designs that utilize various techniques and also include a background. I was kind of torn between a couple, so I asked Joseph to help me decide, and he picked the Magnolia, which I think was a great pick because it has a lot of different techniques. It has a background to it, but it's also a technique where you just leave the white of the paper just completely uninterrupted for like a large portion of the illustration. That's something that I am always very uncomfortable with doing. So I felt like this would be a really good one for getting out of my comfort zone. You guys will probably notice that I've been cutting these out of the book. While the pages are perforated, it's actually really challenging to tear these out without ripping them up. So it's easier for me to just cut them out and then kind of fussy cut the perforated edge off the side. If you're better at tearing perforated pages out of a book, it probably will not be an issue for you. Also, if you guys remember, there's like that front flap foldy cover thing at the front of the book. I think that's meant to be kind of like a mini portfolio to hold your finished illustrations. I've just been placing them into the book. So this is another one that requires you to ink it first. She recommends the Tombow Mono Twin, if I'm remembering correctly. I am still using the Sakura Pigma FB, but if you are a Tombow fanatic, you could use a Tombow Fudenosuke. You guys know I am a big fan of brush pens. I love the line variation, and they're also a lot easier on my hands than fine liners or single width pins, so this is my pen of choice. What really matters is that you are working with a pen that is going to be waterproof, and we are doing that with this. I did kind of notice that the line art mostly disappears when you paint on top of it, but with the iris illustration, it didn't fully disappear. And this is kind of a frustration because if you decide to go off script and do your own thing with this, her line art is still going to be kind of visible underneath, which might bother some people. That's actually one of the reasons I use the blue line technique with my illustrations, is that once I stretch it onto a watercolor stretcher, those blue lines reactivate and they dissolve. I can pick them up, and you would not have noticed those blue lines to begin with. Unfortunately, the longer those things sit on the paper, the harder they are to remove. So it's not necessarily an option that would work well for me with sending out watercolor kits. She doesn't really give this instruction, but I'll share it with you guys. We're going to be working with a lot of water for this one, so you really want to make sure you secure it to some sort of support. So I'm using the same chipboard that I have been using for the past 4+ projects. It's the same chipboard that I include in my kit, so it's good to know that you can really keep reusing that chipboard over and over again and really get some mileage out of it. And it's not even particularly heavy-duty chipboard, and I really don't understand why she doesn't include something like that in her kits, because it also isn't that expensive. So this tutorial really focuses on a lot of wet into wet and loose watercolor and just kind of playing with water and just kind of letting go with it. And the paper choice for these kind of really loose wet into wet projects is not a good one. This cellulose is not, it doesn't handle the water the way I want it to handle the water. So while I love the idea of including these pre-printed line arts in the book, and I realize you might not be able to do that with a cotton rag paper, the choice of projects is not really, from what I feel, based on my preferences, it's not really a good fit. And the dry times are just, I know I sound like I'm complaining about them a lot. I'm going to remind you guys, I love wet into wet. I love chaotic techniques. I love a bunch of layers, but I do that on cotton rag papers that are better suited for that. When I'm working on cellulose in general, I try to keep it simple because it's going to want to lift up. It's going to take forever to dry. So I just don't feel like this paper was really the best choice for this book. You, as a consumer, if you choose to buy this book, you might want to find a way to transfer these images to a paper that's a little bit better suited. You might decide you want to redraw these projects yourself and put your own spin on it. And that way you can share it. I do think she has like some hashtags where you can share these finished pieces. I'm a little leery about doing that. First of all, because this is a review meant for consumers. And if I do that, then I'm kind of changing the way I'm interacting. And I don't feel like that's a good choice considering I'm doing these for the purposes of review rather than as someone who bought the book, painted these, and just wanted to share them. Like, I feel like that kind of different intention might create some murkiness, and it might also attract some unwanted attention. So one of the things about this project is there's a lot of like stop what you're, or let it dry and then go back in and add additional details with ink. I thought this was really interesting because usually when I'm inking, I either ink all at the beginning and then maybe add some ink details at the end, or I ink everything at the end once I finish painting it. So this was kind of a different one for me. Also, leaving the white of the paper and not painting the magnolia is a different one for me as well. Often my white flowers can end up a little over painted, a little over muddy. So this could be a good technique to emphasize really, really white things like snow or flowers. And it was good to do this too because I kind of feel guilty about leaving so much white of the paper. In my head, it has kind of an unfinished look, but then going back and adding the extra line art kind of helps finish it. She also suggests in her written instructions that you go over with the other side of the mono twin. That's the chunkier side, and you ink with that. I decided to bring in a watercolor brush pen. This is a waterproof, well, it's a pigment-based Pentel pigment brush pen. And so it's going to be waterproof once it's dried. And what this does is it has a really chunky dry brush line weight that adds a lot of like texture and fun to it. And I feel like it did a good job of kind of balancing the contrast and kind of evening things out. So I like what this brought to this. And I have to say with the magnolia, I really liked how the magnolia turned out. It's probably my favorite, and I wish I felt like I could share it, but I feel kind of weird about sharing it without like either tagging her and disclosing where the line art came from and where the idea came from, or just not sharing it at all. So I opted to just not share it at all. So she also has this interesting like mark making thing going on for the background and then kind of overlapping. And that's something that is just totally out of my comfort zone, to just kind of add these like random marks and random design elements. So I'm really glad that she talked about this in her book and she mentioned it in her book, because it's just like alien to me. Like, it looks good and it's a cool idea, but I don't have a design background. I don't really think like a designer. I think like a storyteller because I have that comics background. So I'm always thinking about like, especially if I'm drawing and painting people, how to tell a story. And these little marks are not antithetical to that, but they're just a different way of thinking. And I'm really glad that I kind of was pushed out of my comfort zone with this to try something that I would not have tried. Now, she recommends using a white and a gold gel pen for this. I do not have either. I don't have good luck with either. So I pulled out some gold gouache as well as some white gouache, and that's what I'm using for these accents. Now, I think at the time I bought the book, she does have some like recommended resources. It would be kind of cool though if she did like a book pack where you get the book, you get some of her paints, you get the Tombow Mono that she's talking about, and you get the gold and white gel pen. And that way you wouldn't have to, oh, and maybe a couple brushes. And that way you wouldn't have to bring anything additional to the table. That could make a really good gift. That said, her brushes are golden taklon. They're rather expensive for like what you're getting. So that might not be the best idea after all. So even though this was kind of unintentional, I feel like we were able to cover a really neat gamut of Sarah Cray art kits with today's review. We got to talk about her Floral Workbook, which has a lot of the same elements that you might get in the kits, but you do need to bring your own brushes and your own paints to this one. Now, some of the kits are the same thing. You would need to bring your own brushes and paint to it, but then some of her kits are more inclusive, like this mushroom one that we did together. And not all of them include a like graphite transfer image. Some of them you're going to have to draw on your own, whereas the book has all of these pre-printed line arts for you guys. So there are a lot of options in Sarah Cray's shop for people who are looking for different ways of making art, different ways of using watercolor, or perhaps easier access to an art form they were interested in but maybe found intimidating. I want to talk about the pros and cons of the art kit that I did. Now keep in mind that some of her other kits are a slightly different experience. Some don't come with paint, some don't come with the transfers, so this is not a universal. So we're going to start with the pros. This kit utilizes a graphite transfer technique that is great for less confident drawers, or also great for people who love to draw and don't want to use her transfer like I did here. As for the cons, I don't like the paper. It didn't come with brushes, which I felt for the price point it could have come with brushes, especially because she sells a lot of synthetic brushes with her own branding on it. One or two would not have been a huge price inclusion, but it would have made the kit feel more accessible. And I am just personally not into dye-based watercolors. On that note, and this isn't the pros and cons of the workbook just yet, but on that note, same paper, don't love the paper, comes with a pre-printed like image already on here. I actually had a hard time, I did 3 of these. I had a hard time justifying spending the time to do them because I felt like I would have enjoyed it better for me personally if I had drawn it myself, and I would have felt more like I could share it if I had drawn it myself. And at no point was I trying to replicate exactly what she was doing. I was trying to learn her techniques and kind of put my own spin on it and sometimes my own materials into it. But I still didn't feel comfortable sharing the resulting art on my Instagram because my Instagram is pretty much all stuff I've drawn and painted. And I couldn't even necessarily call this a collaboration because it's not like we were working together on this. But she does encourage you to share the results and to tag her. I'm not at all implying she has done anything to make that anything less than welcoming. That's more my hang up as an artist and maybe my own pride as an artist being unwilling to bend a little bit like that. Let's talk about the Floral Workbook. To be fair, I really want to like this book. I think it's got a lot of great things going for it. I love the selection of techniques and projects. I like Sarah's art. I love the idea of mixing projects with printed line arts in a spiral bound book. There's a lot of great ideas here, but I have to bring so much of my own knowledge to this. And as an intermediate painter who paints a lot of flowers, that's a substantial amount of knowledge that I have to bring to be able to complete these projects. And a beginner watercolor artist might not have that background. I had to bring my own skills, my own memory of what irises look like. Trying to find it. There we go. my own ability to guess what she's trying to imply in between the lines, my own experiences with dry times. And while I had at least some fun working on these projects, I feel like I didn't learn much. I did try some new things though, but I was kind of already aware of those things just being on social media. This was kind of the impetus that encouraged me to try those things. And I worry that a novice painter might find this book very frustrating because the projects look so fun and there are such big gaps in all of these steps. There's just like a lot that isn't really articulated or it isn't really explained. And it definitely has that like older art book feel where you go from step 1 circles, step 2 a fully rendered kitten. It's not quite that bad, but I can see if you're a more hesitant painter or newer to watercolor that this might be a more challenging book for you. If you like Sarah Cray's art, her kits do actually come with the video instruction, which does a much better job of filling in the gaps. I would recommend the kits over this book unless you feel like you're more confident in painting, unless you feel like you already know these techniques and you know what she's trying to get you to do and you just need some encouragement in how to execute it. I had hoped that this book would come with video instruction and it doesn't seem to. I don't want to undersell how much I love that she takes the same topic of flowers and finds different ways to handle that topic. This is what I've been demanding from so many of the watercolor books that I reviewed, and I would be remiss not to mention that. So if you're an intermediate artist with a decent collection of skills and you tend to get stuck in a rut, this could be a great incentive to try some new things. If you're a less experienced watercolor artist, this book will not teach you the skills you need to complete these projects. She does have another book coming out through more traditional publishing, and I hope to see that her instructions in that are more thorough. I am going to talk about that book when that book comes in. I've done 3 projects from Sarah Cray's Floral Workbook and tried to ensure that they sort of covered the gamut of complexity. While there's a lot I like about this Floral Workbook and I feel like it's doing well compared to similar watercolor painting books, there's a few areas where I feel it sort of falls short, and sadly that's in the instruction. The photos are all too small, there are too few, she tries to cover too much in between steps, and the writing doesn't really do a good job explaining what she had in mind. Her kits solved this problem by including video tutorials, and I sort of expected that option would be with this workbook as well. I feel like I was able to do as much as I could because I have a lot of experience with watercolor that I could apply to this workbook, but I also feel like generally the sort of person buying this sort of workbook is doing so to learn new techniques that each project require. Unfortunately, this book doesn't really teach those techniques. I also like that she pushed me out of my comfort zone, but it was only successful because I am already familiar with watercolor and follow several other artists and have seen many of these techniques used elsewhere. These complaints could be easily resolved with video tutorials to accompany the instruction, or more and better photos and more and better written instruction. So what are the pros and cons of the Floral Workbook? Let's start with the positive. There are lots of pretty floral projects. So if you like flowers, if you like painting flowers, this is the book for you. She also has a landscape book that I have not checked out. And honestly, landscapes are a weak point for me, so that might be something worth considering in the future. I can't speak to the quality of that, but if it's anything like this, it's going to have some really good points and some weaker points as well. You could frame these and put them up in your home if you're happy with how they turned out. Like this magnolia illustration turned out really pretty. I love how by me introducing a larger brush than she recommended, I could get this really nice chunky dry brush. And usually I am so shy about doing these kind of freer hand mark making and introducing additional materials, sort of illustrations. I tend to be kind of tight and mannered. And this was a lot of fun to do. And I think it would look really good in my bathroom. So you can frame these if you're happy with how they turned out, which is really cool because now you have not just some of Sarah Cray's work because she did the line art and taught you how to do it, but it's like a collaboration between you and Sarah Cray. And I really love anything that makes art more accessible to more people and allows them to own original art, whether it's art that they've been encouraged to make or this kind of a collaboratory kit, or something that they were able to purchase. I also love the binding on this book. This book is very well made for kind of a self-published project. It has spiral binding. I'm not really sure why this unfolds. Maybe it's to hold your projects. That would actually make sense. That's a very sweet idea. It's full color, and I love how we also have the mixing of the project and then the actual printout. That is so nice. It's very clever, and I like the general quality of this book. Now, the cons for me are these projects skip steps. Let me find an example that I'm talking about. These projects skip steps. I feel they lack adequate instruction for a beginner to follow. The photos are all small and hard to see because she's trying to fit 6 on a page, but she can dedicate an inch at the top to the title. And this would really be better suited to a more intermediate and more experienced painter who might be looking to get out of their comfort zone. My overall verdict for Sarah Cray's art kits and her floral workbook. In general, I like the quality and thoughtfulness behind both the workbook and the kits. While I personally don't like dye-based watercolors and might opt for the cheaper versions of these kits that don't include the paints, the dye-based watercolors are easy to use and provide nice results. The paper is a cellulose that handles more like a mixed media than a watercolor paper, which is not my preference, and I would like to see her maybe opt for a more expensive paper. This is her paper, like her branded paper, and this gave me an opportunity to really try out her paper. So I guess I can also comment on the quality of her paper. Not for me. Don't like it. I don't think it's anything special. For context, I like cotton rag papers like Moulin de Roy and Blick. I also like Shizhen. I like cellulose papers like Canson XL if we're talking budget, or Canson Montval for my comic pages. So I've gotten very set in my ways on what I like to paint with and what I don't like to paint with, and you might love her paper and feel completely differently, and that is totally valid. It's just doesn't handle the way I would want it to handle, and I didn't care for it. The paper is a cellulose that handles more like a mixed media paper than a watercolor paper, but if you tape it down to a surface, it holds up well enough. Although the dry times on these wet into wet projects are very long, like hours long, like overnight long. The video instruction in the kits is a very important part of the kits. So if you struggle with video instruction, you may struggle to complete the kits, as the printed instructions are rather anemic and the workbook suffers from the same issue. These are both for a somewhat confident beginner or intermediate artist who isn't afraid to make mistakes, look things up, try new things, and possibly scrap what they've done and start over. And that's a natural part of making art. In the future, I'd love to see Sarah Cray include more and larger photos and better written instruction, and perhaps include a couple of brushes with her kits. Overall, I think these would make a great gift for someone who loves to paint, but perhaps doesn't enjoy drawing and would love to make beautiful art without having to think about what to draw. Perhaps a wonderful antidote to art block. So we took an in-depth look at one of her watercolor kits, the ones that include the line art as well as the paints you'll need for it, as well as printed instructions with video instructions online. We took a look at several of her other kits, although not as in-depth. And we also took a look at her floral Watercolor Workbook. So I went back on her site just this morning to see if I could find like links to tutorials for this workbook or like information on where there might be more instruction, and I couldn't find this workbook. She's currently gearing up to sell her Landscape Workbook, and I could find that no problem, and that's considered, I think, the volume 2 to this one's volume 1, so you would think by clicking on that you would find the other, but no. So unfortunately, I cannot definitively tell you right now whether or not there are intended video tutorials. I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt because she seems to do the video tutorials with a lot of things. And I wanted to just give her that benefit. However, we are finishing this review on the tails of me unboxing her advent calendar. And I went into the advent calendar about halfway through this review, and I was expecting kits, I was expecting instruction, I was expecting tutorials, I was expecting projects, I was expecting explanations, I was expecting video. I didn't get any of that. I just got some products. We didn't even get the bonus tutorial that she promised. I wonder if something happened, or I wonder if after I released the review, no, I'm still getting her emails. So I don't know, maybe life happened. Life happens to lots of us, but if possible, it would have been helpful if she'd have sent out an email or something about that. But I didn't even get my final day tutorials. I don't know what's up with that. So I have like kind of mixed feelings because that advent calendar started off strong and just took a nosedive into just not worth the money. But in general, I feel like her kits are well put together. I like the video tutorials. Honestly, the video tutorials are kind of a must watch if you're going to do the kits, because her written instruction is just really not her strong point, and it's really not there. And even if she just had somebody write notes from her videos and include more shots from her videos, that would be really helpful. But I don't know what her workflow looks like, so that might not be feasible. That's often how I write tutorials, is I do the video and I take notes, or I do it as I'm doing the project and take notes, and then I do the time-lapse part. You know, there are ways you can do it, but her instructions are definitely kind of weak. And I point this out because I get comments all the time from people who tell me that they can't follow my video tutorials because they can only follow written and photo tutorials. Like, I hear this comment publicly, I get sent DMs about it. Like, okay, I get it. I hear you. I used to do the blog. I get it. This is not going to be able to do that for you, is the reason I'm bringing it up. And because it seems to be such an important way for so many people to learn, myself included, I do think it's worth mentioning, because I could see this concept being intensely appealing to somebody who struggles to learn from video tutorials and really needs that written and pictorial supplementation. This isn't going to be it. However, if that isn't an issue for you, if you can follow from video tutorials, or you're very good at guessing what the next step should look like, or you're already familiar with watercolor, her kits and her floral workbook might be a good fit for you. So thank you guys so much for joining me on our second Sarah Cray Easily Influenced. The timing just did not work out for me. This was supposed to come out first, and then the advent calendar was supposed to come out during Advent, and it managed to come out during Advent. So I hope you watched both of them. I will link that one down in the description below. If you enjoy this series, if you find it helpful, if you find it informative, if I am providing information about products that you are curious about, then please consider liking this video, clicking the subscribe button, and hitting the bell notification for more. If you are new here, I probably should have introduced myself at the top, but I am Becca. I am a watercolor comic artist and illustrator. I have 2 degrees in art. One of them is a BFA in hypermedia, which is digital art, and the other is an MFA in sequential art, which I got from SCAD. So my major focus is comics and illustration. That's the lens that I look at these things through. I have been teaching art both online and off for basically, I started as I was graduating from undergrad. I started volunteering at my high school, and I have been doing art education as a supplement to my income off and on ever since. So it's been almost 15 years, which is quite a while. So when I review these sort of kits, projects, and tutorials, I'm also looking at it through the lens of an art educator who often does cleanup work after the art influencers have finished spreading misinformation and misteaching things. So that's my bias right there. I've had to do a lot of re-education on artists who think that, you know, being a self-taught artist means you don't use the internet and you don't look things up and you don't ask your art friends. Thanks so much for those of you who have spread that misinformation. I really appreciate that. I've also had to do a lot of cleanup work on artists who think that they shouldn't have, that reference is wrong or reference is cheating or using reference is not how to be an artist. Awesome. If I come across as harsh, it's because I am looking at it from the lens of somebody who is actively teaching, actively working with people in an in-person setting. And I teach through libraries, so I get a lot of people who otherwise could not afford art classes and art education. So their access is through the internet and then through my classes. And often I am the only opportunity they have to ask an artist their questions. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed today's look at Sarah Cray. Let's make art. I am ever so easily influenced. It is not difficult to talk me into buying and trying things, but hopefully I try them so you don't have to. If you like the work that I do and you would like to help me continue to do it, you can join me over on Patreon at patreon.com/nattosoup. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you guys again soon with another art supply review or tutorial. And I do not know why that bus has their backup thing going on. I don't know what's going on over there. Bye, guys.